What's up, guys? Ray Reinhardt's Chaos Astrologer. So this is something that's long overdue that I put off for a long time, and I apologize for that. I'm here to make up for that and go above and beyond. So I have done a lot of my theories and written a lot of behavioral psychology, behavioral theories with Black Moon Lilith, which is a fictitious midpoint used in modern astrology, and I have made some lectures, like podcasts and videos, uh, going into different archetypes with Black Moon Lilith, and wrote a couple of blog entries about it too. But I haven't actually gone through every single archetype and Black Moon Lilith through the houses, and I've been feeling like an overachiever, and I wrote 6 pages worth of everything I need to say about it. So sorry if I'm staring at Gizzy. My cat is a spaz. So sorry if I'm just staring at my paper. It's a lot. But again, I felt like it was something I should make up for since I was supposed to do it. Can you come in here? Do you want to help me read? Really? Well, it's too bad because you don't know how to read. So if you could shut up, please. I love you, but oh my god. Anyway, so let's get started. Alright, Black Moon Lilith. If you're not familiar with Black Moon Lilith, Black Moon Lilith is a theoretical point, a fictitious point, not an actual star or heavenly body or an asteroid. It's actually symbolized by the empty focal point of the moon's orbit around the Earth, the dark side of the moon, more or less. Lilith is represented by creation, growth, destruction. Has to do a lot with the symbolism of Lilith in the Adam and Eve story. It is the dark side of the moon, so it represents emotional imbalances, immaturity, and toxic behavior when underdeveloped. You can transcend this. As an individual transcends their natal Black Moon Lilith, the influence can bestow maturity and self-empowerment. When it's suppressed, which is usually what happens with most people, it becomes a source of self-destructive behavior, turbulent feelings, rage, jealousy, anger, emotional manipulation, and extreme toxicity. The really hardcore toxic people, it's their Lilith that's causing it. So if people are actually more aware of Lilith, understand their Lilith, and here's the kicker, accept Lilith. And this is my forewarning, anybody who's watching this. If you're watching this to learn what your Lilith's about, you're likely not going to like what I either have to say or you're going to instantly deny what I'm saying. Say I'm wrong. I totally understand. That's on you though. If you want to continue to lie to yourself, go ahead. But if you're ready to actually know what it's about and be able to acknowledge it and know yourself so you can work on yourself, then here you go. So, in fact, the majority of the time, toxic behaviors evident with unbalanced individuals stems from Lilith conflicts. That being said, let's examine the Black Moon Lilith archetypes through the signs and houses. I put a star next to this. Projection is a huge factor, by the way. This is why Black Moon Lilith attributes to the shadow self with like Carl Jung's theories, and why I attribute a lot of my Black Moon Lilith theories to astropsychology. Projection is a huge factor when defining the characteristics of Black Moon Lilith with the signs. This is one of the most difficult points in a chart for people to embrace and accept, because it reveals the emotional underbelly of a person and some aspects of one's own personality that is rejected. So let's just jump right into it. Aries in Black Moon Lilith. Overly aggressive and selfish is the generalization. Aries Black Moon Lilith manifests as an overbearing need to force your way onto everyone else. Whether you're justified or not, the darkest side of Aries manifests in the unbrooding selfishness. And then I also just wrote down the houses associated with the signs as well, because those are interchangeable to a certain extent. You're going to notice when I read like the first house associations of Black Moon Lilith, doesn't have to be an Aries, but if it's in your first house, it will take on some of the facets of an Aries kind of dark side. So the first house, if Black Moon Lilith is in your first house, vibe and emotional atmosphere revolves around you, whether you admit it or not. That's the mind selfishness. When you're unhappy, everybody knows it. You either lash out or withdraw. Both are equally intense and obvious. Deflecting blame on everyone else for your discontent, but it's caused by your inability to compromise or let somebody else have their way for once. Then we go into Taurus Black Moon Lilith. unconditionally uncooperative, and stubborn. Taurus Black Moon Lilith manifests as the ultimate resistance to change, especially positive or constructive change into your life. By clinging to all the excuses you can muster, you claim that there's no viable way forward. This stems from your deep fear of leaving your comfort zone. You must accept unpredictability and embrace variables that cannot be foreseen. As you see, every obstacle, you must acknowledge that the only obstacle is actually the heels that you're digging into the ground that are yours. Second house for Black Moon Lilith. Money problems, stability concerns always happen, yet it always seems to be everyone else's fault. Reality is that you're the cause of your financial woes. Until you take responsibility for your own stability, or a lack thereof, it won't go away. Black Moon Lilith in Gemini. Close-minded and a poor listener. A natural at speaking and articulating ideas, but it's an echo chamber. You spend the entire time trying to talk others into embracing your views and perspective, blatantly refusing to hear others' opinions or thoughts. By talking over them, you always seem to have the last word. As they walk away refusing to argue with you, you're angry and accuse them of intentionally ignoring what you had to say, when in fact you're the one guilty of doing that. That goes back to the projection thing. The reason why people get so mad about this is because this is the undesirable traits and behaviors that they actually possess that they're subconsciously suppressing, or they are they lack so much self-awareness that they don't even understand their own behavior. Even for my own self, just to give some perspective, I never knew how much my Black Moon Lilith and Leo in the third house really was intense in causing people to reject what I was saying, until I reviewed myself on social media, like posting statuses, the way I interact with people, even some of my earlier YouTube videos. I was still struggling through a lot of that. I went with this whole, I'm being honest, and if you can't handle it, then that's your problem, not mine. But I'm still being honest now, but I'm not being as much of a vindictive bitch about it, if you see what I'm saying. And a lot of that stemmed from Leo has to come with shining and confidence. And if you lack confidence, which at that stage in my life I was going through my Saturn return and other harsh, character building transits, I obviously wasn't as confident and balanced as I am now. And that's when the Black Moon Lilith lashes out. Black Moon Lilith, the behaviors really manifest when there's wounds or some self-work that needs to be addressed that is being neglected. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of mind, third house, Black Moon Lilith. Your mouth gets you into trouble. Whining, nagging, criticizing is what others hear, and it's the harsh truths or words nobody asked you to say. You feel attacked for speaking without a filter, but people are just responding to your cruel words. You must become aware of what you say and how it hurts others around you. So again, it wasn't until I was reflecting and watching myself on social media did I actually understand what that was and how that was impacting. I thought that everybody was just mean to me because I was saying something that other people didn't. I didn't realize how negative and harsh I was. And then I started to notice, and then I actually kind of started getting off on it because I thought it was funny. But I've kind of grown past that. Anyway. Cancer and Black Moon Lilith and Cancer. Queen bee of emotional manipulation. Guilt trips, gaslighting, devaluing, often using love and affection as leverage to get your way. At best, you're naturally just moody and insecure, and your feelings are easily hurt, so you often use that as justification to inflict emotional toxic tactics on those close to you. Your insecurities are often the origin of all these toxic behaviors, and it's ruining all your loving relationships. Once you acknowledge your feelings and express them openly, you can build deep, fulfilling connections with other people instead of ruining all your relationships. Black Moon Lilith in the fourth house. You're the black sheep. You're anti-family, even though you're supposed to be with family, because Cancer is supposed to be all about family. A dark side of your nature upsets your family in some way, but you blame your family and accuse them of rejecting your self-expression. constant imbalance of clinging and then snapping. You expect your family to coddle you when you're coddle you, and when they don't, you lash out as if they're the heartless ones. So you have this toxic codependency kind of cycle going on if you have Black Lilith in the 4th house. And when you feel rejected from that urge for codependency or to cling, you lash out at them and tell them they're horrible and you hate them. Then we go into Leo, Black Moon Lilith. This is mine. Bleeding heart drama queen, often believing everyone else takes advantage of you while disregarding everything others do for you. You must learn gratitude and acknowledge what others do for you instead of fixating on how great of a blessing you are to everyone else all the time. For example, my videos, I used to say, I'm doing this for free, I'm doing this because I want to, and I'm doing this to help spread the word and help spread the information, blah, 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 blah. And, yeah, I was helping spread information, but I wasn't being very, I wasn't being constructive, I guess, more or less, putting it lightly. Then we look at Black Moon Lilith if it's in the 5th house. My ex had this, actually, and as I was kind of writing this out, I'm like, yep, that explains a lot. All play, work doesn't pay. You point the finger and shame at everyone and everything else that interrupts your fun and games. You have all these amazing ideas, passionate projects, and the world is dying to see, and you never seem to get to them because everyone else is slowing you down. Your spouse, your job, kids are a nuisance and sabotage all your projects. You must find a balance between fun and duty. I just feel the need to vent a little bit about my ex for a second. It's more or less just giving you an example. So he would be sitting here like writing or something like that, and he'd look up at me, and then I start to make conversation, thinking that he wants to talk, and then he would say, "Can you not?" I was like, I just lost my train of thought. I'm like, look what you just did. I'm like, you just looked at me. Or he would be in the process of like, playing and writing some sort of form of music or something in the other room. And if I'd go in there to try to give him something to eat, or I tell him to feed the cats, or, there's a phone call or something, then he would slam his guitar down and then deal with whatever it is and then go back and then sit here and sulk and pout and be angry for however fucking long because somebody just ruined his creative flow. And it was important. I'm like, okay. Or he could be walking out of the room with like some garbage in his hand, and I happen to have like some garbage, and I go, hey, can you take this with you? And he goes, hold on, I'm busy. And then he would go throw it in the garbage and then come back. I'm like, okay, can you throw my garbage away now? Go back out there. And then he would roll his eyes like he's annoyed because he had a Libra Mars, so he's lazy as fuck, where he didn't want to go throw that away, and then he would be pissed that he had to do that. And I'm like, well, if you would have just listened for 5 fucking seconds, took it when I saw you were going that way, then it would have been fine. But how dare I interrupt his whatever he's doing? It doesn't even have to be fun and games. Whatever he's doing is the most important. And goddamn it, if you interject or interrupt, even if it just conveniently works for everybody, hey, do you want to take my trash too? He will flip out. And yeah, anyway. Felt like I could just use that colorful example and share that. He also had Aries Black Moon Lilith, so he had the selfishness, like I'm gonna do whatever I want thing, plus the don't interrupt me shit thing going on. Yeah. It'd be funny if you watch this. I was like, that's why Sweet didn't work out very well. Cause yeah, anyway. Then we go into Virgo Black Moon Lilith. The martyr of perfection. Expectations are extremely high, toxic level high, leading to an anxious state of inevitable failure. You blame others for imposing unrealistic standards upon you. You actually are foreseeing or thinking that other people are the ones imposing these standards upon yourself, when in fact it is you. You are the ones that are imposing those unrealistic standards upon yourself. But those standards are internalized, and they come from you, created by how you think people perceive you. It's a vicious circle. You will fail if you continuously raise the bar. You need to acknowledge your limitations, shortcomings, and stop the delusional perception for godly perfection. We look at Black Moon Lilith if it's in the 6th house. Selfless servant. Mirrors a lot of the Virgo vibe. overwhelmed, fraught, having internal meltdowns due to the inability to say no to more responsibility. It's okay to say no. So that's again taking on too much. Or if somebody says, hey, can you do this for me? Hey, can you do this for me? Virgos have a tendency to, like the Virgo archetype, tendency to look like they're cool, calm, and collected. That the person you go to when you're trying to resolve your problems. They're the best person to edit things, to revise things, to tell you exactly the best way you should do it. So, and because they put on such a really good front and a good face, that they're handling it well, and that they're organized to every single dot and T, that you just seem to love it. But it's a matter of fact that you're putting on a facade of perfection, not so much that you love it. So that's why the Virgo thing turns into this whole toxic internal meltdown. Not good. I have a Virgo Mars, not good. I don't like to do that kind of stuff. Then we look at Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Libra. Self-sabotager. You're too fixated on everybody else's business, gossip, and problems to address your own. Often neglecting yourself, procrastinating on your own obligations, abandoning your own projects and goals. Stop being a people pleaser and live your life for you. Black Moon Lilith in the 7th house. Fear of intimacy and commitment, using the excuse nobody's good enough to push any potential partners away, when it is you refusing to process some of your deeper rooted emotional pain. Likely stemmed from early life experiences, maybe to do with your parents. Parents are signified by the moon and by Saturn, by the way. You can look at those placements in your chart. And any aspecting points between your Black Moon Lilith, and that could definitely give you some details on that. Scorpio in the sign of Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Scorpio. Bottomless emotional pit. You're intense and obsessive. Whether you realize it or not, you go too far and even overwhelm yourself. When you do, you blame others for invading your life with their crisis. But in reality, you interject yourself because you're drawn to the intensity and the gloom and doom and the sick, sad world kind of shit. Anybody who wants a thorough detail, because this is like the most elusive one or the most difficult one to explain. Scorpio, signatures and archetypes usually are. I did do an hour-long podcast discussion that's on YouTube here on Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio. Then Black Moon Lilith, if it's in the 8th house. Sick, sad world, the darkest side of sexuality, debt, lust and greed. You attract turbulent situations and people to yourself. You must free yourself from the depths of your own darkness to uplift yourself from these cycles, so you quit being a great attractor for these kinds of people and scenarios. Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Sagittarius. The reckless fool. I think of like the Fool's card in tarot. Wielding your enthusiasm as a weapon, diving into anything that sounds exciting, regardless of the chaos you leave in your wake, like a stampede of horses trampling everything on your way. It's basically just, it's the worst nightmare or worst case scenario or worst things about a Sagittarius. Them not being realistic, getting carried away, doing whatever they want, and not listening, being impulsive. 9th house. If Black Moon Lilith is in your 9th house, it's the Plato perspective. You know Plato, the philosopher, the Greek philosopher. You're at odds with society's norms, whether it be religious, laws, or civil rights. Reality is that you're uncompromising rebel who needs to learn to give and take. So you can be the martyr and you can stand up and say what's right, but you're also going to have to deal with the repercussions of that. And if you're expecting people to be compromising or to accept some of your radical views, you need to give and take and scratch their back a little bit on occasion as well. We look at Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Capricorn. This is the master or dominatrix. Taking responsibility and to take charge of things comes natural to you. But the urge to control leads to an abusive lack of boundaries, and you struggle to let things go. You need to take charge of everything, and you perceive others' suggestions as defying your authority. This is somebody who can't, who would just salivate at the idea of having puppet strings or being able to tell people what to do or, abusively, that sort of thing. That's why I use like the master kind of theme or symbolism for that. If we have Black Moon Lilith in the 10th house, domineering. There's a song by this group called Assemblage 23. It's called Greed. There's a part of the lyrics that makes me think of this, and it just sums it up to a T. Step on the necks of those beneath you and claw your way up to the top. That's exactly the manifestation of Black Moon Lilith, not only in the 10th house, but in Cancer or Capricorn as well. You crush and destroy others for control and ultimate authority. You're willing to do whatever you can to take charge and to be able to have your say in whatever, anything goes. Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Aquarius. Outcasted social butterfly. Your interactions with others is abrasive, conflicting, and uncomfortable. You have this desire to socialize, but more so to indoctrinate your social circle rather than engage in discussion with them. You're pretty fixed in your ideas and point of view, while always seeming to adopt unconventional opposing views of the group. Perceiving disagreements you perceive disagreements as a lack of support. You are unable to accept differences of opinion, which is the origin of a lot of your social conflicts. So you strive to have that social dynamic because it's an air sign and it's 11th house kind of energy, but you're unable to agree to disagree, and that so you are the main problem with that, but you're the ones keeping yourself from the one thing that you desire, which is social interaction, social connection. That is the theme with all the Black Moon Liliths and every single archetype, is that you are actually the source, the problem, the origin of the problem, the chaos going on, and you're deflecting it to other people because that's some undesirable trait that you wouldn't like otherwise, hence why you're blaming everybody else. And it's easier to blame somebody else than it is to take responsibility for it. Or again, people not having a lot of self-awareness, they cannot acknowledge something if they don't know about it. So Black Moon Lilith being in the 11th house, intolerance is a major theme in you're intolerant, a major thorn in everyone's side. It's difficult to enjoy your company when you're unwilling to let others be themselves. Again, that's that. Makes me think like the social justice warrior. Pretty much. Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Pisces. The drowning hanged man. So the hanged man in tarot is a good example. You suffer from major denial of an emotional aspect within yourself, causing you to deflect that on others and avoid any opportunities for intimacy, claiming others are emotionally unstable when in fact it is you're not being rational. Instead of trivializing other people's feelings, you need to acknowledge and work through your own or drown in them. 12th house, Black Moon Lilith is in your 12th house. So Black Moon Lilith is usually, something that people aren't aware of already, as I've said. It being in the 12th house, or even in Pisces, would probably be one of the most difficult points or aspects in a chart to overcome. Just because of the lack of clarity and the lack of objectivity. So, if Black Moon Lilith is in the 12th house for you, lost within your own life matters. You delve deep into situations that you often lose perspective of what's important. All your struggles seem to stem from others, or do they? You're always so lost, and you don't know which way is up, if it's their fault, or if it's their fault. But it's always easy to blame somebody else, isn't it? Yep. So, I tackled it all. I'm sorry that this technically isn't, every single one of them isn't as thorough as like my Scorpio one or my Sagittarius one that I've done, but at least I covered all of them. So there's that. If you have any questions, if you want to share anything about your Black Moon Lilith, or you want to lash out at me in the comments because you're not ready to deal with this, and you probably shouldn't watch this, I don't care, go ahead. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed.